Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 16th chapter. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The Gospel of the Lord.
How does a caterpillar know that it's time to spin a cocoon? That's the question Sue Monk Kidd wonders about in one of my favorite books. The book is entitled When the Heart Waits. And as she begins to do her research for the book about the mysterious process of metamorphosis, what she discovers is that caterpillars don't yield themselves to the cocoon at the same rate. When the moment to spin the chrysalis arrives, some of them actually resist the transition. They cling to their larval life. They put off entering the cocoon until the following spring, postponing their transformation a year or even more. Now, the state of resisting the process or clinging to the only life they've ever known is called the diapause. And what this means is that it's not only you and I that resist change, but nature itself has this built-in resistance to the process of becoming something new and different. And for those who are part of the transition course, you know that it's not really change that we resist at all. What we resist is the transition that change calls us to embrace. Well, as humans, we all know diapause, a time when we do everything we can to hang on to the self that we know. When confronted with the possibility of a new life, a new existence, a new challenge, we make this valiant attempt to save our old life. In the words of one writer, we fear it's all we have, even its sufferings are familiar, and we clutch them because their very familiarity is comforting. Yet so long as we aim at the maintenance of this present self, we cannot enter the larger selfhood which is pressing for life. Another way to say that is that we have within us this deep longing to grow and to become something new, to move forward in our lives, but we all possess an equally strong compulsion to remain the same, to burrow down into what we know, into our safe, secure places. One caterpillar came upon another who told her about becoming a butterfly. But how do you become one? The caterpillar asked. Well, you must want to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. The other said, You mean I have to die? Yes and no was the reply. It looks like you will die, but really you will still live. In today's gospel lesson, Jesus says the same thing a different way. Those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. What looks like dying is really the way that we finally start to live. And that's why baptism is such an important symbol for us as Christians. Oh, not the image of baptism that we've grown accustomed to, a little sprinkling, a kind of dry cleaning in our tradition. What I'm talking about is that real image of baptism where we are plunged beneath the water, the dangerous image of baptism where we drown, the old self dying so that the new self can take its place. And that's why in the baptismal service it mentions things like Noah and the flood. And it reminds us of how scary it must have been for the Israelites who had to walk through the Red Sea with those huge walls of water on each side. You know, we've lost that threatening image of baptism. It's become a nice, cutesy little ceremony that often focuses, in the case of infant baptism, on how adorable the baby is. But baptism is really the drowning of the old self. We go under the water and our old sinful condition is annihilated. It's destroyed. And what comes up out of the water is the new child of God, reborn, recreated. You know, just think about the images that we've seen lately on our televisions, images of the devastating effects of hurricanes and tropical storms. Our own roads here in Coachella Valley, here in Palm Springs, washed away. You know, water is this powerful force. Entire landscapes are changed, as well as lives devastated by flooding. Homes are lost, lives too. And with warmer ocean temperatures these days, we can expect more devastation as hurricane season is upon us. Well, on the other side of the water of baptism, things are also different. And we can't ignore the threatening image of water, of being submerged beneath it, even being held under the water, for it is scary to allow God to transform us, especially when we know that something within us will have to die. Don't you think the caterpillar, as it enters the cocoon, feels something of the same thing? Afraid that it won't be able to breathe, afraid that it will die, that the darkness and the stillness of the cocoon will be too overwhelming. And so the caterpillar resists diapause. But eventually, the caterpillar gives into the process without so much as a clue of what's going to happen. As God transforms us from the old self into the new, we sometimes panic. We fight our way back to the surface, to what's familiar, to what we've known before, back to the same old life that we've always lived. And what we end up doing is aborting God's plan. Remember the context of our gospel lesson. Jesus was telling the disciples that he was about to undergo great suffering. He was about to die, about to enter into his own cocoon, into his own process of transition, the cold cocoon of a dark tomb. It must have been foreboding for Jesus himself. And the disciples wouldn't have it. And Peter blurts out, "God forbid it, Lord, that would happen to you." And so Jesus explains that it's necessary because it's the only way to discover what might lie on the other side. You see, Jesus trusted in the promise of his heavenly Father to care for him, even as he entered the darkness of his own cocoon. But the same Jesus also said, "I am the resurrection and the life. Believe in me, and you will never die." And with that promise in hand, we give up the diapause. We quit resisting, and we enter into the cocoon knowing that something awaits us on the other side of the ordeal. Why is it that when we hand ourselves over to God, that we always have to let go of something, that something inside of us has to come to an end? You know, some spiritualities call it surrendering. The caterpillar loses its legs, its long, fuzzy self, but the true essence of that caterpillar is not lost, but revealed in all its splendor. As the old self dies, the new self emerges. Does the caterpillar know it's becoming a butterfly? I don't know. But I do know this. Once you discover what God is changing you into, you will never want to be what you've been. What a wonderful surprise it must be then for the caterpillar as it emerges from its dark and cramped cocoon, only to discover that it will never again have to crawl around in the dust on its belly. Today's gospel lesson calls us each to consider where we may be in this spiritual process. No doubt this third trimester of life, which I like to refer to, and in which we all perhaps find ourselves, it has its own agenda. Some of it's unavoidable. The aging of our bodies, the subtle slipping of our memories, The resilience we once knew when we were younger, not as available. Some of you said after our bowling event the other day, you were sore for days. But some of it is avoidable. You can resist in all sorts of ways the spiritual call of the third trimester of life. But I tell you, you will never grow and you will never become the person that God intends for you to become during this time in your life. You see, there's still plenty of time to experience the life that has eluded you, the life you've only dreamt about. Don't give up. And if you have given up, then kick your spiritual ass back into the game, because there's more, especially in the third trimester of life. Or maybe God is calling you to spin the cocoon. Your soul is telling you that something in your life, the old ways, they're no longer working. Your spiritual instinct is suggesting a change and inviting you to weave the cocoon and enter into its dark and tight space. But you're afraid, and you don't know what's on the other side of completely letting go and trusting in a process imprinted on your soul. And so you're resisting diapause. Well, trust the blueprint that God has placed within you. For might God not have a plan beyond your wildest imagination? Or maybe you're already in the cocoon, and it's dark and it's cramped, and you're wondering how long you have to stay there. You want out, but the time is not yet right. The gestation, the growing is not finished. It's not done. To you, God whispers, patience, the day will come. Trust me. And then maybe you're the one breaking out of your cocoon, and you thought that would be only joyful, but you're discovering that it takes hard work to unfurl your new wings. You're tired. Don't give up. Stick with the struggle. It is the way you will come to know new-found strength. And beyond a personal application in our own individual lives, there's also an implication for us as a congregation, you, the beautiful people of River of Hope. For a long time, we called ourselves a new faith community in the desert. Well, we've gotten away from that idea. We've gotten away from that word, new. And I want to suggest to you that we start using it again, because it reminds us that wherever we may be in our development as a congregation, we are always being called to enter into some sort of transition, to undergo yet another metamorphosis, to let go of the past, even a short past, to let go of who we are in order to become something we've never been, something new, entering into an unknown future. It will mean some things will need to go, a death or a dying of many things that at one time served a good purpose, but now no longer do. The promise of God is that as we lose our legs, we will gain our wings. Who will we become? It's okay to be afraid a little bit of the future, even natural to resist diapause, resistance to transition, hanging on to what we've known. But my dear, dear friends, we've undergone several transitions. We have, as a faith community, courageously entered into the cocoon over and over again. We have trusted in God to lead us into a future, and in the waiting for it, have surrendered ourselves to the Spirit that has reshaped us again and again. I have no doubt we will repeat that pattern many more times together. And on the other side of each one of those transitions will be something hopeful and something beautiful. We will not forget the promise of new life, of new possibility in our own lives and in our congregational life as well. We will remember the butterfly who, before it can ever be what God intends for it to be, must get awfully anxious. God whispers to it what God whispers to us. Do not be afraid to enter the cocoon. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Yes, you will lose your legs. And when I get done with you, you will be hardly recognizable. Just wait to see what I am changing you into. Deep peace. Amen.